everyone. We are FOR3ST HILLS. My name is Zero.
I'm Jack.
And today we're going to be answering some frequently asked fan questions and also some questions that we've had during some of the recent interviews that we've been doing. We get lots of questions from you guys on Instagram and on Twitter and our different social media. And so today I think we just wanted to take a minute and just put that on YouTube so that you guys can listen whenever you want. So one of the most common questions we get is, how did FOR3ST HILLS form? I'll answer and you can add on to it if you want to.
Yeah.
Oh, there's our band mascot. Say hi. That's Avalon. That's our band mascot.
She's mad that we're using her windowsill.
Yeah, she wants to be on the windowsill. FOR3ST HILLS formed in October of 2018. Jack and I were both in Los Angeles at the time, working independently as musicians. I was looking to form a band, and so I put out a musician's ad, and Jack was one of the first to respond. Do you want to say why you were out in LA?
I was mainly just out in LA to find musicians that wanted to form a band based on more of a business motto rather than a I just want to rock out in my garage motto. Both are great, but I kind of want to do this for the longevity of my life, not just as a hobby or as something I do on the weekends.
I was in LA for college, so I had picked up music while I was out there, but the main reason I was there was for school and not necessarily music related, although that worked out really great for me in the end. So the next question that we get a lot is, were you musicians prior to FOR3ST HILLS, and how long have you been making music? I'm gonna answer first.
Yeah, I've been I'd say, professional musician for probably about 10 years now, and I've been playing music for roughly 22 years. I started off with piano, and it was classical piano, so it was all the learning how to play Beethoven and that fun stuff. And then when I was around 13, 14, I picked up drumsticks for the first time.
And then it all went downhill from there.
Yeah. It just became more fun.
For me, I mean, I've always been musical and in the creative field. Oh wow. I didn't start really making music until I was about 12 years old. That's when I started writing songs. I started teaching myself guitar. I self-taught myself all the instruments that I play. But yeah, I would say around 12 years old is when I really started making music. So who does what in the band would be the next question.
Well, I do all of the drums and the little percussion stuff, which isn't too much. Mostly it's just adding 808s and certain aspects of electronic drums. But all my drums are acoustic, and then I add in the electric on top of them if I want. But none of it's programmed or like sequenced or anything really.
Yeah, so Jack takes care of the drums and I take care of everything else. So if you hear vocals, guitars, piano, bass, every instrument that you hear that's outside of percussion is from me. Will you get more members? We're open to considering that in the future. When we actually initially formed the band, we did audition some people, but at the end of the day, people were kind of looking for a finished product. They'd say, hey, send me the album and I'll see if I'm interested. And at that point, we don't really need you in the band if we were able to make an album without you. And considering that Jack and I can play all of the instruments that we need in order to make the music, it's just not necessary or logical.
Or they wanted a list of bands that we were trying to sound like.
Right.
And that wasn't really what we were going for. Like, yes, we're all influenced by things that we appreciate and musicians we respect, but we weren't trying to be the next insert name here.
Right. They would want to know exactly what kind of sound you were looking for, what genre it is. And when you're trying to make something that's new and unique and just have a band, you're not really thinking about, oh, I want to be the next X, I want to be the next whoever, I want to sound like this. You're just kind of making music that's new. And so I think, Jack and I have a very similar mindset and we have good chemistry when we work together, and that's another reason why we never got other people involved in the band. It's very difficult to find other musicians with that same mindset.
Our first emails passing back and forth before we even met were mostly about schedule and our work ethic more than what genre we wanted to play or what kind of music we wanted to make. It was more about how would we actually work together?
Yeah, the first few times that Jack and I met, like obviously I listened to him play drums, I showed him some of the music that I was making, but it was mostly about discussing what we wanted, who we were as people, and what kind of band we wanted to run, because a band is a business at the end of the day.
And there were some rants in there about past bands too.
Yeah. At that time, I had recently just gotten out of a bad band situation, and I was definitely ranting a lot about that. But, at least I'm in this healthy one now.
Well, I've been in a lot, and so the first thing I told Zero was like, so are you ready to record an album?
Yes.
I didn't want to do a single. I didn't want to do an EP. I was like, no, I want somebody that's willing to actually put the time in and like attempt at least to do an album.
And when I had come to Jack and we formed FOR3ST HILLS, I already had most of our first album, Break Free, written because, as I mentioned before, I had just gotten out of a bad band situation, and I had written a lot of material for them, so I had all this material kind of sitting that was just waiting, and it wasn't going to get used either way. So I think 8 of the songs were already written, and then I wrote the other 5 after we started moving forward with FOR3ST HILLS. So do you do stuff other than music?
Currently, no, that is the main focus, especially since I just moved to New York to keep writing with you. So currently music is the priority, and even when I was doing other stuff, it became the priority. But on top of music, I teach martial arts, I'm a professional barber, and those just kind of come in and out. Sometimes they tandem and work perfectly along music, and other times I've had to step away, step back into those roles. So it just kind of depends on what the availability of opportunity really is. But music is always more in my control than those things, so it's a priority.
Yeah, I very much agree. If anyone asks me what I do for a living, I always say music. Music is my top priority. It's what keeps me going every day. When I was in LA, I mentioned I was going to college. I started with my associates in graphic design, and then I transferred to law school and became a paralegal. So I do both. I do all of the graphic design for our band. I do anything that's art.
It's amazing.
And then all of our legal stuff also, because venues, contracts, all of that stuff, that's legality, looking at when you're renting a van and stuff that involves. So I think all of my education has helped us with our music, but definitely on the side I've looked into doing more legal work. I used to volunteer at a veterans legal aid clinic. I've done freelance graphic design elsewhere, but music is definitely the main focus. Anything else is secondary or even possibly just a hobby. When will you go on tour or come to other states?
Well, as soon as possible, but we don't want to risk being able to keep doing music in order to just say we've done that.
Yeah, I mean, especially right now, at the time we're recording this, coronavirus is happening, and so a tour right now is completely out of the question. We aren't even really planning it right now because we don't know when the world will be safe, and we don't want to make a bunch of plans even for next year and have to postpone or cancel events. I definitely do think within the next 2 years that we'll be able to do a national tour. As far as international, maybe within the next 5 years, but we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we spend all of our savings and all of our money and then we lose our studio and then we can't continue being a band. That would be terrible. So it really just depends on what our income looks like, how safe the world is, and just how quickly we keep growing as a band. I think at our current rate, pretty soon.
And like, not to put a weight on everybody else's shoulders, but it really depends on the people watching this and how we can get your help to keep spreading our music and to help us be able to tour.
Absolutely.
And that's not just being like, give us money. No, that's just spreading the word of our music and joining our Discord channel and being involved with our community. Stuff like that.
I mean, a CD purchase here or there, $10 is great. That'll help us buy some cups of coffee and whatnot, but sharing us with friends and helping us expand our fan base and getting more bodies that can come to concerts and actually come to events and support us, that's what's really going to help our band in the long run. I'm not saying we don't want you to buy our albums or our merch.
Of course, that's great.
We love that. That's awesome. But at the end of the day, it's more
street team style,
for the overall long-term goal of our band, it's almost more helpful if you take the free option of just sharing us and helping us expand and get more exposure. Being an independent band means we are fully self-funded and we rely on our fans for self-promotion. We don't have a label or tons of sponsors giving us a giant budget to spend on ads and promotion. We don't have that. So we definitely do rely on you guys a lot. to help us get that done. Okay, so the next one is for me specifically. When did you first start singing? I'd like to say I've been singing since I could speak, but again, as far as singing professionally goes, I would say I started making music around age 12, so I'd say professionally around age 14. That was when I really got into my first studio and started really making product. I was initially attempting to go for a record deal. I would say 14 years old was when I professionally started singing. Are you both professionally trained? Would be the next one.
Yeah, I would definitely say I'm more lenient on the professionally trained. Like, especially with classical piano, I had to take theory tests every single year and know my music flashcards and all that good stuff. And then even when I started taking drums, when my drum teacher realized I had that training, he took me instantly down the jazz, like learning how to sight read jazz drum books and stuff. So it was definitely formal training.
You Berkeley prep boy?
Yes, and I have been called that.
Yeah.
In not so nice words.
Yeah, in words that we cannot say on YouTube. Me personally, I don't have any formal training. I was in piano lessons for like 3 months when I was 7, and then I quit that and didn't pick up piano again until almost a decade later. And then as far as vocal training goes, I had, I think, 1 or 2 voice coaching classes, but those were more just me singing. The teacher saw that I had, good pitch, I was able to control well, and really he just gave me tips on how to recover my voice after singing for a long time and just warm-up exercises. So it really wasn't training me how to sing. Otherwise, all the instruments that I play are self-taught. No formal training at all. What bands influence and inspire you?
Well, I mean, one of the first bands I ever got to actually see live, like, by myself, without, like, going with my family or, like, tickets my dad would get us, which he took us to some great concerts. The first band I ever saw by myself with a friend was Sick Puppies, and I actually got to go to lunch with them and witness an acoustic concert. So it was just a nice complete package. So I was always influenced by how they presented themselves, and their music's pretty darn catchy. I was also an angsty 16-year-old, so their music was nice. But them, 1,000 Foot Crutch, Showbread, just kind of a lot of bands that have had successful careers. They might not be on the radio right now, or ever been on the radio much, but they have successful careers and have always maintained their fans' respect and admiration.
I'd say, I mean, when I was growing up, my parents were very much into rock and metal, and so I grew up with anything from like 90s onward, any rock band that was in my house when I was growing up. I was very obsessed with Nirvana when I first started making songs and teaching myself instruments, so I would say grunge definitely influenced me a lot in terms of my initial sound. But I don't have any particular influences to this day on how I write and make music, because that sort of defeats the purpose of making something original. If you're automatically taking an influence from a certain artist, you're already saying, okay, I'm gonna sound like this person. I'm not gonna make something that's new and its own thing. Of course, to an extent, because I do listen to most like gothic rock bands and grunge bands, those will, I mean, our music
they come to the surface. Like,
yeah, that will come into play. This cat here is bothering me.
Yeah, no, me too. That's why I keep it to my nose. Like,
yeah, this is allergies right here. We're both allergic to Avalon. But no, I mean, obviously anything that you listen to will influence you to a certain extent, but I sort of purposefully try to not let that happen as much as possible, because Forest Hills is Forest Hills. I don't want Forest Hills to be Linkin Park or Korn or Paramore. We get a lot of comparisons to really great artists, and I'm not saying I'm offended by that.
It's cool to be compared, because that means it's relatable and people actually can palate your music. But,
sure, but you still want it to be its own unique thing.
If I hear a drummer doing something cool, I'll try to figure out what that is, and I might kind of just take that one little tiny essence of them and try to use it, but normally it's used so far away from the context that they used it that it doesn't, like...
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of Forest Hills. We have inspirations, but then we take it so far off the end that it's not even... You can't even. It's
more or less for our own entertainment, like just so I can chuckle and be like, oh, that was that sound that I heard, Dave Grohl do or something. Like, it's just fun to give little shout outs there. If somebody hears it, great. If they don't, it's still good music.
What is your favorite Forest Hills song?
I mean, I've grown to like a lot of them because once you play them a couple hundred times, you learn to like them in totally different ways. I'd say my favorite just as a musician would be Incomplete, because it was just fun to create. I don't know, they all have their own special little home. Like, I Am is really fun.
Yeah. You like playing Alone, too.
Yeah,
So
Alone, well, yeah, Alone was, I think I sent the most demos of Alone to Zero, and he was like, nope, still not feeling it yet. And I'm like, what?
I'm very picky with his drums.
Which is nice. Like, it's better for somebody to be picky, because then when you get something they like, you know that it's good. When somebody's not picky at all, and they're like, oh, you always sound great. It's like, well, I mean, that's great, pat on the back for me, but at the same time, I know that's not true.
Well, and my past experience comes into play with that because when I first got into my first studio, I was working in pop music and I was working with a pop producer, and so I learned how to write songs in a commercial way with a lot of pop influences, and I know when a song has chemistry and what elements work and what don't. And when I first met Jack, I didn't like his drumming at all, but I saw his work ethic and I saw that he was willing to try different things and take feedback, and so I knew that he was someone I could work with because he was willing to keep going at a song until we found the perfect match for it. But for me personally, I think my favorite FOR3ST HILLS song hasn't been released yet.
Psych!
Off of our first album, I would say Echo. Echo just like, it hurts me in the right place, always.
That was the first one we wrote really together, wasn't it, too?
What do you mean together?
Well, like, wasn't that one of the first, like, ones that you didn't have, like, previously?
Oh, Echo was actually the last song that I wrote for our album.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was after we'd kind of been together for a bit, and we were really starting to pick up the pace as far as working together went.
You'll hear a lot of Echo in the new album, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I took a lot of influences from Echo, and they're in the new album.
Well, and I think our new album, Renegade, which comes out August 1st, I think it definitely shows how we've come together as a unit rather than two people learning how to work with each other to form a band and make music.
You were saying how Echo, where it came from.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
It's my favorite song, but it's like, it hurts me in the right place, and I think when I was writing it, I was in a very sad mindset, and I felt like nothing that I said really mattered, like I didn't really have a voice, and it was more of just like an echo, but there was nothing there. And so whenever I was singing that song, it always felt very personal, and I feel like you can hear that in the recording, is that it was very passionate. I don't know. The emotion in the song is what gets me. I don't necessarily think they're the best lyrics that anyone's written ever, or that, like, the guitar riff is not very complicated, but it's the power in that it's a grounded rock song that it's my favorite. It's definitely my favorite off the first album. Into another gear, what is your sexuality and gender identity?
That's none of your business.
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
Okay. What is your sexuality and gender identity?
I mean, like, why? Yeah. Why would somebody ask me
that? The
that?
answer is yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
You go first.
Me? Well, I'm transgender, and so I identify as a boy. I use he/him pronouns. I don't intend to transition or do hormone therapy at any time, so I will be staying in my female form. As far as sexuality goes, I'm technically asexual, but I'm also biromantic. I'm attracted to both male and female.
I go by Hey You.
Hey You.
Like...
Stupid.
I mean, I never thought about it that much. I guess I just like who I like, and I don't know.
I mean... But you're more used to people calling you he.
Yeah, no, most people say he, him, just because that's, like, how I was technically born, or I don't even know how to phrase it correctly. But yeah, no, I guess he, him, and tended more towards straight, but technically bi, but I don't really care.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
Hey You works great.
Yeah. Jack is an enigma, and we don't know anything about Jack at all. He can't answer you. What is your zodiac sign?
I only know this because so many people kept asking me and then also telling me, but I believe it's Libra.
Yeah, Jack is a Libra, and I'm a Sagittarius. How tall are you?
I am 5'10", but lots of people think I'm 6 foot.
Well, 5'10" is basically 6 foot.
Yeah.
It's 2 inches away.
Yeah, but if I was 6 foot, I would look weird.
2 inches is not a lot, despite
Yeah.
what some think.
Yeah.
I'm 5'2". The 2 inches matters
Awkward
there.
silence.
Where are you both from? I'll answer first because your
Mine's
answer is gonna
lengthy.
be so lengthy. Wow, your phone's really having fun. I'm from New York City, born and raised. I'm actually from, well, technically I was born at a hospital in Manhattan, and for the first couple months of my life I lived in Brooklyn, but I was raised in Forest Hills, Queens, New York City. So that's why our band name is Forest Hills, because that's where I'm from.
I was technically born in Northern California, and then when I was 1, family moved to Branson, Missouri / Springfield, Missouri area, the Ozarks. So if you've ever seen the show Ozark, yes, that's where I grew up. And yes, a lot of those stereotypes are funny and related. But yeah, so that's where I grew up, and then when I was 18, I moved to Nevada, and/or known as Las Vegas, Nevada. I did not go there to party. I made it out alive. Don't go there if you like to party, guess.
You made it out alive.
Yeah, it was great. That was awesome for 2 years. I had a really successful band for locally while I was there, and then after 2 years, I wanted a bigger swimming hole as far as music, so I moved to LA and just kind of kept hitting the bricks, and 7 years later, took a lot of time. But yeah, just kept doing things over and over and over again, and eventually found something that stuck, and now I'm in New York.
Yeah.
Last place I ever thought I would be living. Never even tried living here. Never thought about it, and here I am.
All that we asked was where you're from, and you gave like your whole life story. But anyways, I guess
This is my life story.
I guess I'll give you mine. So yeah, I'm from New York City, and then when I was around 12, 13 years old, my mother got a job at Yale University in Connecticut. So she moved out there. My father stayed here. My parents are divorced. So I kind of went back and forth between here and Connecticut. I kind of lived in both states for about a year. And then my mother ended up going to California in Los Angeles, and I decided to follow her. And I just came back to New York every few months to visit my dad. And then, yeah, once I was in Los Angeles, a few years later, towards the end of college, is when I met Jack. Yeah. Where is your band based? Well,
We already kind of went over that.
yeah,
but-
it's in New York. We met out in Los Angeles, but after our first album came out, we played our first show at the Whiskey A Go-Go in Los Angeles. We opened up for Orgy, and then immediately afterwards, we hopped in a U-Haul
like
truck.
the day,
Yeah.
the night after the show, we loaded my drum kit from SUV into the U-Haul. Like, slept for a little bit, packed up the rest of the studio, and left that next day. Like,
Yeah.
there was no, like, a week later, 4 hours.
No,
it
it was that
night,
day. And
yeah.
then we just came to New York, and now we're back in New York City, in Forest Hills, which is awesome. What is your favorite instrument to play?
Drums definitely is where I found my expression of music. Piano, getting there, but it still feels very systematic and rigid to me.
You also play harmonica.
So-
You forgot to mention.
Well, yeah, it's just harmonica's fun to, like, I mean, here it's not so much. People are really competitive with their busking, but in LA, like, you could just, if somebody was playing instruments to make some money, you could just go up and start jamming with them, and they were super chill, and they'd be like, yeah, this is fun, and then, like, that was cool. Here, people are a lot more, like,
Yeah.
I don't want to say aggressive with their busking, but it's like, no, this is my business, don't interfere with it, so I don't really do that too much here.
For me, I mean, I play guitar more than any of my other instruments, but I would say piano is probably my actual favorite to play, just because I just love the way the piano sounds, and it feels amazing to play. It's a beautiful instrument. I would say that's definitely my favorite, even though I don't play it as much as my others. What is your favorite genre of music?
All of them.
Pick one.
I mean, I will say jazz just because jazz can mean anything.
It most certainly cannot. It most certainly cannot.
I don't know. I guess alternative rock in a certain perspective. Emo music. I don't know.
I get that. I would definitely say like gothic rock is my thing. Maybe nu metal. I don't know. Something within that realm. Currently. I mean, who knows? In 5 years, that could be different. Oh, great! Come here to make me sneeze and
Yes.
have to scratch my nose more. How does your second album differ from your first album? So the second album, I mean, while we're recording this, it has not been released yet. Renegade comes out on August 1st. I would say, I mean, like I said before, we're more of a unit than two people learning how to make music together now, so it's definitely more solidified in our own sound. I do also think that our second album has a little bit more variety than our first album. Not to say that our first album didn't have variants. I think there are lots of different songs on it, but our second album, I think, explores a few different genres than our first did. So you still have the rock, you definitely have nu metal in there, you have rap, screaming, singing, but I also do think the instruments dive into maybe the pop genre a little bit, and your drumming also changed in style a little bit for this album too.
Cool.
Yeah. He might not have noticed it, but I noticed it.
It got lazy and sloppy. No.
Yeah. I mean, you always were, but it's just worse now.
Trash.
And then our last question that we have, unless there's anything that you want to mention, is how did you make an album and release it only a year and a half after forming FOR3ST HILLS? So the answer to that, which has kind of been covered already, is that I had most of the songs written when I met Jack. To this date, I've written 1,034 songs. I've been writing since I was 12, so I have a very large song bank to begin with, but I had already been crafting an album prior to meeting Jack. It was intended for a different band, but then when we formed FOR3ST HILLS, I kind of took those songs, redid them a little bit, and turned them into my own product. And you also
didn't show me any of the songs that you produced. Like, you didn't show me any demos or anything, so...
No. When I say I had other songs, I mean, I wrote the songs in their entirety. I wrote them with the intention of giving them to this band so they had a little bit to fit the sound that they were going for, but they hadn't contributed all to them. So when I found out that I was going to be working with Jack, I completely reversed that. I just redid them the exact way that I wanted them to be, and I wanted them to be my sound. And then from there, I only had to write 4 more songs, so that didn't take very long.
That we're dedicated.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we don't pay for hourly studio rentals. We didn't jam for weeks on a song just to, like, we found the feel of it by recording our takes and then hearing it and seeing if we could hear the feel of it, and when we would get closer, we would solidify it. Like, we didn't really waste time just getting together for the sake of getting together. We more or less recorded.
Yeah.
And that's how we solidified the songs.
Yeah, we don't rent studio space by the hour. We have a monthly rent for our studio. We have lockout access to it 24/7. It is only our space, and we've always done that, and we always will do that because that's just how we operate. But yeah, definitely like for the first couple months after our band formed, it was only like when we met, it was strictly for working on specific stuff for our album. It was never we're just gonna fool around and jam and see what happens.
And we've talked to a few producers, and they always bring up, oh, well, I could get you some hours in a studio. We're like, how about getting us some weeks or some months in a studio? Like, I don't know, to make a song in an hour, it's gonna sound very generic. Like, it's gonna be very predictable and generic.
And you're forcing yourself to get everything right on the first take, and at that
point...
Which
is good, like, we do try to do that, but still, it's
But you're losing the chance of experimenting and finding something that's potentially better. Like, when I record guitar takes, I can do those pretty quickly, but I also keep in mind that I might find... Avalon. Kitty troubles.
Yes, very much kitty troubles. Really, Avalon? Okay.
We're just gonna edit to be at this part.
Oh, I mean, we might leave that in.
Yeah, okay. Fine. Avalon knocked over the camera because you want to show her because she's on the windowsill now.
She's been in it most of the time. But
yeah, she's doing her thing.
Yes, that's our culprit.
What was I even talking about?
Just studio time.
Yeah, I mean, I always keep in mind that I could find something else that I like, and that when I listen to a guitar take that I could think of ways to play it better or things that I can add in, and so getting a few hours for studio time is really... You're not going to accomplish anything. At least our band is not going to accomplish anything that way.
But yeah, that's...
yeah, so I mean, feel free to comment below if there are other questions that you have that you want us to answer in another video, or if you want us to elaborate on any questions that we did answer in this one. Make sure to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. It helps our page grow, and it's actually going to make things easier for us down the line, because for live streaming, YouTube's very strict. They want you to have at least 1,000 subscribers in order to live stream, so we've been jumping through hoops with that. But yeah, no, thank you guys for watching, and let us know what you want us to answer.
Bye.
Bye.